The old woman, frail but resolute, looked up at the incessant drone. It was a sound that had replaced the laughter of children in the streets of London for months. A low growl that slowly, inevitably, intensified into a shriek. Then the explosion. Not near, not yet, but close enough for the plaster to dust down from the ceiling of her tiny apartment. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She merely adjusted the gas mask on her shelf and prepared another pot of weak tea. This was 1940. This was the Blitz. And this was her war. We often imagine war as a clash of armies, a grand chessboard of generals and nations. We picture soldiers in uniform, tanks roaring across desolate landscapes, ships battling on the high seas. But what if the true battlefield isn't where the soldiers stand? What if it's the home, the street, the village square? What if the real war is fought not by those trained for combat, but by grandmothers making tea, by children huddled in basements, by fathers trying to find bread for their families? For millennia, civilians have not been mere bystanders to conflict. They have been its primary victims, its hidden participants, and its most enduring survivors. This is the unseen war, the story of how ordinary people endure the unthinkable. For much of ancient history, the distinction between soldier and civilian was often brutally blurred. When a city fell, it wasn't just the opposing army that suffered, it was everyone within its walls. Imagine the terror of a besieged city in the Bronze Age. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. Food dwindles, water sources are contaminated, disease runs rampant. Hope, like the besieged city's walls, slowly crumbles. When the gates finally gave way, the conquerors often showed no mercy. Men were slain, women and children enslaved, cities plundered and burned to the ground. The fall of Troy, as immortalized in myth, was less a clash of heroes and more a horrific testament to civilian suffering. The women of Troy, their children ripped from their arms, faced a fate worse than death, a life of servitude. In the Roman Republic, entire populations could be sold into slavery after a successful campaign, their homes razed, their fields salted. War was total. Civilians were part of the spoils, a resource to be exploited, or a danger to be eliminated. The concept of innocent non-combatants was a luxury few could afford and fewer still recognized. As empires rose and fell and feudal systems took hold, warfare in Europe often became more localized, a contest between rival lords, but this offered little comfort to the peasant. Imagine living in a village nestled in the fertile plains of medieval France. Your lord is at war with his neighbor. Soldiers, loyal only to their paymaster or their liege, might march through your fields, trampling crops, demanding sustenance, or simply taking what they wanted. Your home could be burned, your livestock stolen, your family brutalized, all for a quarrel that had nothing to do with you. Hiding became a vital skill. The woods, the caves, even the local church, any sanctuary was sought to avoid the roving bands of armed men. Starvation was a constant companion, as armies lived off the land, meaning they took the peasants' food. Survival meant not just avoiding the sword, but somehow finding enough to eat until the next harvest, praying the soldiers didn't return. The true horrifying expansion of the unseen war began in earnest with the 30 Years' War in 17th century Europe. This was not just a conflict between armies, it was a devastating struggle that tore through the very fabric of society, particularly in Germany. Mercenary armies, paid by different princes, crisscrossed the land, leaving behind a trail of unparalleled destruction. Villages were wiped off the map, populations decimated by violence, famine, and disease that followed the armies. It's estimated that in some regions, 2/3 of the population perished. Imagine standing amidst the smoldering ruins of your village, your family gone, the land barren, and the silence broken only by the whimpering of a lone, starving dog. The distinction between soldier and civilian evaporated. Survival often meant fleeing, becoming a refugee in a land consumed by chaos, or joining the desperate, marauding bands yourself just to eat. Then came the age of the great empires and professional armies. From Napoleon's vast conscripted forces to the disciplined ranks of Victorian-era Britain, warfare seemed to become more about direct military confrontation. Yet even as soldiers fought on battlefields, civilians were impacted by the logistical needs of these vast forces. Roads were repurposed, resources commandeered, and the constant demand for men meant brothers, sons, and fathers were pulled from farms and factories, leaving families to fend for themselves. The true shift, the moment when the unseen war became a central, undeniable feature of global conflict, arrived with the 20th century. The First World War, often painted as a nightmare of trenches, was still devastating for civilians. Blockades choked nations, leading to widespread food shortages. The Ottoman Empire's Armenian genocide, occurring simultaneously, was a stark reminder of how civilians could become direct targets of systematic violence. And then, the new terror from the skies. Zeppelins and later airplanes began dropping bombs on cities. Londoners, far from the Western Front, found themselves hunkering down in cellars, listening to the drone of distant engines approaching, a chilling harbinger of what was to come. But it was World War II that fully unleashed the total war concept upon civilian populations. This wasn't just about fighting armies, it was about destroying the enemy's will to resist, its industrial capacity, its very spirit. The battlefield was no longer a distant line, it was everywhere. Imagine the firestorm of Hamburg or Dresden, cities consumed by infernos born of Allied bombs, where the air itself turned toxic and survival meant finding underground bunkers or fleeing into the burning streets. Or the chilling, calculated decision to drop atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Not just military targets, but vibrant cities filled with ordinary men, women, and children. The concept of the home front became as crucial as the battlefield. Women worked in factories, children collected scrap metal, families rationed food. Propaganda plastered walls demanding sacrifice. Civilian life itself became a weapon, a resource, a target. In occupied territories, civilians faced a constant struggle for survival against a different kind of enemy, the occupier. Imagine a Parisian during the Nazi occupation, constantly weighing collaboration against resistance, hunger against dignity. Black markets flourished, providing essential goods at exorbitant prices, forcing moral compromises for basic survival. Or a Ukrainian peasant watching their crops seized, their sons conscripted, caught between the brutal ideologies of Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia. The choice was often between one form of brutal survival and another. The numbers are staggering. In World War II, civilian casualties for the first time vastly outnumbered military casualties. The unseen war had become the dominant feature of global conflict. After World War II, the nature of conflict evolved, but the civilian experience remained central. The Cold War gave rise to proxy wars, internal conflicts and guerrilla warfare, where the lines between combatant and non-combatant were deliberately blurred. Imagine the jungles of Vietnam, where the enemy could be anyone, and the villagers were caught between the Viet Cong and American forces, their homes becoming battlegrounds. My Lai, a massacre of unarmed Vietnamese civilians by U.S. soldiers, remains a horrific testament to the breakdown of distinction and the dehumanizing effects of prolonged, ambiguous conflict. Urban warfare became increasingly common. Imagine Sarajevo under siege in the 1990s, where snipers targeted civilians collecting water, where children ran across streets hoping to avoid a hidden bullet, or Aleppo in Syria, where families huddled in basements for years, listening to barrel bombs descend from the sky, their city reduced to rubble around them. Here, the battlefield was every street, every building, every desperate dash for supplies. Survival meant mastering the geography of danger, knowing which alley offered cover, which building had a water pump still working. The weapons themselves became more insidious, designed to inflict long-term civilian harm. Landmines, cheap and easy to lay, remain buried decades after conflict's end, turning fields and playgrounds into invisible traps. IEDs, or improvised explosive devices, turn ordinary roads into lethal zones, indiscriminately targeting whoever happens to drive over them. These devices continue the unseen war long after the fighting officially stops, maiming and killing civilians long after the headlines fade. Today, the unseen war has taken on new, terrifying dimensions. Asymmetrical warfare, terrorism, and targeted drone strikes mean that the traditional battlefield has dissolved entirely. A civilian in Yemen might be killed by a drone strike launched from thousands of miles away, their village simply appearing as pixels on a screen. A cyber attack on a nation's infrastructure can cripple its hospitals, banking systems, or power grids, impacting millions of civilians without a single shot being fired. This is a war fought through data, through information, through the very airwaves we use for communication.
The rise of massive refugee crises further underscores the civilian burden of modern conflict. Millions are displaced, fleeing violence, persecution, and the utter collapse of their societies. Imagine a family crossing treacherous seas in an overcrowded dinghy, having lost everything, their future uncertain, their only goal, survival. The emotional resonance of their plight is immense. They are not escaping a battlefield, they are escaping the entirety of a society that has become a battlefield. So, how do civilians survive this unseen war? It's not about grand strategy, it's about micro-level resilience and ingenuity. Physical survival. Shelter. Basements become bunkers, abandoned buildings become makeshift homes, displaced families live in tents, caves, or beneath bridges. Food and water. Rationing becomes an art, foraging for edible plants, cultivating tiny rooftop gardens, finding hidden wells. The black market thrives, a dark mirror of the legitimate economy. Medical care. Improvised clinics in bombed-out buildings, shortages of everything from bandages to painkillers, doctors performing surgeries by flashlight. Escape, often the most perilous choice, fleeing across borders, navigating dangerous routes, trusting smugglers, abandoning everything they know for an uncertain future. Emotional and social survival. Maintaining routine, the act of making a bed, eating a meal at a regular time, or attempting to go to school, however dangerous, becomes an act of defiance against chaos, a desperate clinging to normalcy. Community resilience, neighbors helping neighbors, sharing meager resources, forming informal networks of support, proving that human connection often thrives in adversity. The morality of survival, forced choices, collaborating with an occupier to save one's family, trading information for food. These are the impossible dilemmas that etch deep, unseen scars. Hope and despair, the constant pendulum swing, a moment of unexpected kindness, a distant news report of peace talks can spark hope. A new bombing, a lost loved one can plunge into despair. The invisible wounds. Long after the bombs stop falling, the psychological trauma endures. PTSD, depression, anxiety, the inability to trust. These are the silent, lasting legacies of the unseen war, fought within the minds of its survivors. The story of the unseen war is a stark and uncomfortable truth. For millennia, war has not just been about soldiers fighting battles. It has been about entire populations struggling for existence against forces far beyond their control. From the ancient sacking of cities to the drone strikes of today, the battlefield has continuously expanded to encompass every corner of human life. The methods of survival have evolved, but the human spirit's refusal to yield has remained constant. The real drama, the enduring resilience, lies not in the grand strategies of generals, but in the everyday acts of courage, adaptability, and quiet desperation of those who simply want to live. The unseen war is still being fought today, in countless homes, on countless streets, by millions of ordinary people caught in conflicts they didn't choose. And understanding their struggle is crucial, for it is in their survival that we find the true enduring history of war's profound and devastating impact.
The resilience of civilians in the face of conflict is one of history's most powerful, yet often ignored narratives. It forces us to ask difficult questions about who we are and what we're capable of enduring. If you are a curious mind who wants to delve deeper into these kinds of complex, thought-provoking histories, then join our community by subscribing to this channel. We have so many more of the ages unseen to explore together. We look forward to seeing you again.